Hello, Stampin' friends. The time has arrived for another stamp class, but I'm gonna hold off for just a second until we officially begin to wait for at least one or two people to pop up. Hopefully I don't have the issues that I had last week. We're crossing our fingers. You know what? I can't cross my fingers like I used to. A little harder. All right. I hate this, these few moments of waiting. So I am just going to officially begin with a good Thursday morning and welcome to Seeing Ink Spot's Backstage Pass. Today's stamp class is Use It Up, Love Notes, and Tea Boutique Designer Series paper. Love Notes being, it's just kind of the theme I gave it, but I'm focusing on this stamp set called Full of Love. And it's in the annual catalog. This is a stamp set that does not have a set of dies. And I know sometimes we don't look at them as closely as we do stamps that are bundled because we love those dies, right? But, there's always a universal set of dies for every stamp set, if you know what I mean, right? So, don't overlook, because there's some really good stamp sets. Just because they don't have dies, there's some really good ones there. So, hello, Kat. I'm not sure who else is online today, but do just, in the comments, say, hello, I'm here, I'm watching. It's good to know who's watching, and, who knows what today's discussion will be during our projects, but, chat along with me. It makes it a little bit more fun. Okay, so now I just mentioned, we have that universal set of dies called a pair of scissors, but there is a promotion coming up in September called Perfect Partners. And so they have created die sets for 6 or 7 stamp sets in the catalog that don't have dies. So look for those coming, because there's some really good ones. I think there's some even in the July-December catalog as well. But like the Happy Birthday Piggy has dies that matches it. And there are several others that if you're looking for it, you can buy them as a bundle in September. Or if you already have the stamps and you're like, oh, they're coming out with dies, you can get the dies for it. So that's what's coming up in September. But let's turn the camera and get things started. We'll start with, as usual, a little bit of business so you know what's coming and you can mark your calendar. And then we'll have some fun getting inky and sticky with glue, right? Here comes the hand. You know the drill. Okay. And I'm just going to move this down a little closer than usual. Okay, there's my ceiling. Still haven't taken Newell's birthday decor down. Okay, and his birthday was in May. But then we kept it up for Nick's birthday in July. Okay, so the host code for August is here. It's always on the side of my blog. I'll pop that up there. You can take a screenshot if you'd like. This month with the host code, you are going to get, if you use the host code, you're going to get a Use It Up kit for September. And September, we'll talk about that one in just a minute, but let's go through here. So next week, Thursday, 1 week from today, I will be doing a pickup class. This is Bring Your Own Supplies. And I'm going to be using the Trees for Sale stamp set and the matching tree lot dies, which unfortunately they have sold out during celebration. But if you did get yours, this is going to be fun. Now, if you don't have this, pick up another Christmas set. Pick up another Christmas set and dies, and let's just kind of, work together and create using kind of the layouts I'm doing or the color palettes. Don't be afraid to just find something in your stash. That's the purpose of today's class and next week's class, is to get us into our library of stamps and dies. Get us into using up papers that we've had sitting around for quite some time. All right. Hello, Mom and Pam. Good to have you here. Okay, so that's next week. Also starting next week, let's turn the ad the right direction, is our game night. Will be on Friday night for Studio Ink Spots. Tomorrow is the last day to register for Studio Ink Spots. However, I have added, there were 2 options, but I've added 2 more options to register for Studio Ink spots. So now there are 4 options. There's the option, you know, that has all of the swag and all of your stamp packets and access to everything. There's the option of all of that plus the bundle that you would need to work with. Or I now have a 3rd option, and that 3rd option is online access only. So that will give you access to everything we're doing online, all the Zoom. So you could be there watching live, participating, just grabbing your own stamps and papers. That will also include it'll include a list of the papers that you'll need to pre-cut. And it'll also include the swap and share, and you can come to game night. However, you're not eligible for prizes and you're not going to receive anything shipped to you. The 4th option, oh, by the way, option 3, $27. The 4th option is $53, and it's all of the access. It's the 4 packets, and you are eligible to win prizes, okay? So a little bit different. So go ahead and take a look at that on my blog. If you go back on my blog to July 14th, you'll find all that information. So also be aware that game night is gonna be super, super fun. This is a fall fest. We are including Halloween, Thanksgiving, gratitude, and Christmas in this camp. And we're having a costume party that night. So the cool thing is you only have to do a costume from like, you know, the shoulders up or whatever going to show on your screen. Okay. So, and you'll definitely want to be in costume because it's going to make a difference in how we play the games. All right. It's going to be fun. It's going to be totally different. All right. Upstyle your paper pumpkin. Yesterday was the last day. The 10th was the last day to sign up for this kit. I hope you've signed up for this. This is going to be beautiful. You're getting 2 spots instead of just 1 in this kit. And they're giving a gift of this kind of honeycomb gold accent. They're little accents for cards. So that will be Upstyle Your Paper Pumpkin. And use it up. So 1 month from today, use it up on September 8th. So on September 9th, September is the 9th month, the 8th day of the month, we are going to focus on composition florals, okay? So in other words, bouquets. So this is the set I'm going to be using, Bouquet of Thanks. And so just kind of take a look at that and go, okay, I see that. I have something in my stash that's similar that may have retired, or it's another brand, or I've got, some other images from Stampin' Up! That I think would work perfect. That's what we're going to be using. And I'm going to be using up some of the vellum layering paper. That will be September. And the pickup class in September will be Oceanfront. That's the Bring Your Own Supplies class. You've got to be kidding. Somebody's knocking at my door. Nobody ever knocks on my door. Hello, Claudia. Good to have you here. So that's, and then Technique Time in September is Texture Chic, and that is going to be the entire suite. You're going to love that, so join for that. All right, and I have a whole stack in here. I'm not going to keep going. I have October and November in there, but we don't need to go that far. Just September. Okay, so give me just a second. I'm going to see if that was my door. It is. Okay, it was my door. It was my son. It's like, you know how the garage code is? All right, so he's here. He's doing his thing. All right, so time to stamp. This is today's kit that we'll be working with. And if you have a kit, you're going to need one little thing extra, and that is another quarter sheet of white. I was not being so smart when I made the kits, and I forgot one. Okay, so let's begin. So today's class, we are working with the Full of Love stamp set. Again, it's a standalone, but I was drawn to these 2 images, and especially drawn to those 2 images because this, letter, the bouquet inside the envelope, a loaded envelope, so to say, it's my cup of tea. Plus it matched the Tea Boutique paper. So I thought it was kind of a great connection. Again, it's like not a published connection, but Stampin' Up! Has all this coordination kind of tucked away and hidden in there. So that's what I'm using. I'm also using one of my go-to favorites, and that's the Summer Shadows dies. And specifically, I'm using dies that are not dies to cut out stamped images, but images that when cut, they so I mean, there's your flower right there. So we're going to be using that on our first card, as well as that blossom. So if you had a large flower and a stem or a leaf, that's specifically what I'm looking for my first project here. All right, so let's get going now that we know what we're going to be working with for this first project. And if you have the kit, open up your kit. Okay, you saw a little sneak peek. I've pre-done some things in mine. Now I'm going to shake the gems. Leave those in the bag so that you know where they are. But let's just take out all the paper. Okay, so leave your gems, but bring all the pieces of paper. These are not in order just yet, so we are going to get them into order. Okay. All right, so for our first project, I'll show you the card. I'll give you a preview of what we're going to use. We're going to need this piece of DSP. It's the smallest piece of DSP. We are using up, so these literally are scraps from our tea boutique or our teacup class a couple months ago. So the thought of getting things used up, that's in the vein of using up our stuff, that's what we're doing, is we're using everything up. You're going to need this piece too. So the little scraps are great. Who says we can't create with them? So we're going to need that one. And then let's see, we're also going to need, there's a green one in here, that one. And there is a yellow and white stripe. Let's see if I can find it, that one. Okay, so these are the three we're going to need for our first project. And we're going to need the Starry Sky. This is a 1/4 sheet. You're going to need a 1/4 sheet of white. And you're going to need the Orchid Oasis card base. Okay, so these are the pieces for our first card. So let's just go real fast. Orchid Oasis, this is a card base. For those of you who might be cutting your own, this is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, okay? 1/4 sheet of white, that's what we're gonna be stamping on. 1/4 sheet of Starry Sky, and these are the scraps I'm using from the Tea Boutique Designer Series paper, okay? So there's 4 of them there that are in your kit. This is the back side, if you're wondering, okay? And the back side of this red is teacups with lots of foliage, all right? So let's get right into this and let's start. So this is what I decided to do for this class. I was like, what should I do? I needed some Stampin' motivation. So I decided to base today's class all on sketch challenges. So this is the sketch challenge from this week at Hand Stamped Sentiments. So if you see here, this is my interpretation. This card here is my interpretation of this sketch. And I really, really like color challenges. They don't really do it for me, but I do like sketch challenges because they take me to a layout that I never would have gone to before. Okay, so you can see my interpretation here is pretty close. I have a layer in here, then I have the 4 strips, and I decided to use DSP. You could use cardstock. And then instead of this big rectangle here, I've used the envelope. So I'm representing that envelope, that rectangle with this envelope and the flowers. This smaller rectangle, I have my little greeting label. And then the flower with the bow on it, I've added some die cut flowers, a stem, and a little bit of twine. So I really like sketch challenges. I encourage you to use them, all right? I think they're great. So let us begin. All right, so let's begin with some stamping. Let's get some stamping in, have some fun. So with your card base, we're going to do a little bit of stamping. We're gonna do some Starry Sky ink on the Orchid Oasis. Now, Starry Sky and Orchid Oasis are what I call sister colors. In other words, they're just kind of, one's a lighter version of the other, and they just pair so nicely together. So with the small image, whether you're using this Full of Love stamp set or something similar, find a small image that you can use to create a background. So I'm just stamping, and I'm gonna put a piece of paper under, just because sometimes when my background piece gets all stamped up, it kind of gets confusing and hard to see things. Okay, so I'm stamping just a little bit in each corner here, and I am stamping off the page. I just think it looks a little bit more natural when you do. Okay, and I think that's about all that's going to show. And I'm going to do a couple up here as well. I like to hit the corners. I like to hit the upper left and the lower right. It's just kind of my, that's like Wink of Stella, like, you know, linen thread. It's kind of my modus operandi. Okay, so a little bit of stamping to create that. And then this is our next layer, but we're not going to use this whole piece. We're just going to use a portion of it. So bring your Stampin' Trimmer in, and we're going to cut this piece of Orchid Oasis to 3.5 by 4 1/4. Well, it's already 4 1/4 wide, so let's turn it and make it 3.5. So our base layer in here is going to be 3.5 inches. Okay, so any color that you're using is fine. This piece here is going to be for our next project, so don't lose it. Okay. All right, so 3.5 by 4 1/4, and this piece is going to layer on top. But before I actually layer it in there, I don't know if you can see. Let's see. There you go. There's a good view. I have used the Gingham embossing folder. Now, this embossing folder, it's a great one. It's not a 3D folder. So this one, you're going to need different plates than you would a 3D. You're going to use your 2 clear plates with this one. So let's pop this in and give it an emboss. The great thing about Celebration right now is with the $50 purchase during Celebration, which is right now through the end of the month, you can get this embossing folder for free. They've added some options, and this is one of them. Okay, so I'm going to run this through my Stampin' Cut Emboss machine, and let me show you. I am going to use my #1 plate. If you're using the new one, this happens to be the Big Shot, just the platform, not the magnetic sheet, but the platform. And I'm going to put a plate underneath and a plate on top. Okay, look at that well used and loved plate. Always go through fold edge first on your embossing folder. And I have my plate, my whole sandwich is in kind of crooked, so it's really tight. Put it in straight. Makes it a lot easier to crank it. Okay. All right, so here we have, ta-da, isn't that cute? Love that look. Great folder. And I like this folder because it's texture, but it's not like a seashell, which is also another folder that's in Celebration. It's not it's not a specific tree or specific leaf. It can be used for just about anything. So I like the versatility of it. That's what I should say. Okay, so we've got that ready. Let's go back to some stamping. So bring in a 1/4 sheet of white, and we're this time going to use this cute loaded envelope filled with a bouquet of flowers. I am still going to use the Starry Sky ink pad, and I am going to nestle this way, way, way here in the corner. Okay, so get it right close in the corner so we get maximum use out of our piece of paper there. So there's that image. And I'm also going to stamp the little flower one more time, this little flower. So I'm gonna use this to accent. And I'm just gonna kind of kick this, well, getting maximum use out of my paper. I'm gonna kick it right there. All right, so those 2 images there, stamped on white in Starry Sky. And we're gonna fussy cut those images out. See, those universal die cuts. All right, but I have mine done. And it wasn't too hard to cut. Okay, I mean, 3 of those edges are square. That goes pretty quick. And let's see if I pre-did. Yes, I did. Here it is. Here's my little flower as well. Okay, that'll just help today's So you don't have to sit here and watch me fussy cut, because who wants to watch that? Boring. Okay, I am going to use some Stampin' Blends on this. So I'm going to use, I don't have Sweet Sorbet Stampin' Blends, so I'm using what I have, and I have Poppy Parade. I also had Real Red, but I thought the Poppy Parade, you can't even tell that it's not Sweet Sorbet. It looks great. I'm using Granny Apple Green because I don't have Parakeet Party, which is the other color in this DSP. And I'm using Mango Melody, okay? So those are the blends I'm using. I'm using red, green, and yellow. Pull your Copics, pull whatever you have, okay? And let's create here. So now that I have these die cut, real easy on the coloring here, I'm gonna start with a little bit of yellow right here in the center of these two flowers. I'm not even going to color these two flowers for this card. We're just going to make these daisies, okay? And I'm also going to, and this is my lighter color, and I am using the bullet tip, okay? Doing some real quick coloring here. I like to lay down the lighter color first to get the paper wet, so that when I add some dots of darker Stampin' Blend, it can wick into that color and blend. And so I'm just doing a little bit, I'm just doing kind of little dashes, little tiny little stripes, or, you know, streaks, whatever you want to call this. Not dots, they're kind of little teeny lines. And I'm just doing that right down there at the bottom of these little buds here. And in person, what's fun, and then I can kind of come in here and really do it just at the bottom and get it even darker, is just gives it just a hint of dimension. It's not quite as just color and flat. Okay, I think you'll really see that technique in the next two colors here. So with the green, same drill. Whoops, I thought this was the bullet end. I'm out of the... I colored out of the lines. That's okay. On some of these smaller images, I do really prefer this bullet tip, and I'm glad that Stampin' Up! Gives us, you know, the two tips. Okay, and if it leaves a little bit of white space, that's okay. Call it art. It adds some nice highlight. Okay, so there's that layer of green. I'm also going to add a little layer of green right in here. Okay. And now to the darker green. And I am using the bullet, and so I'm just going to kind of come down the one side. Okay. And it's not looking so great just yet, but give it a moment. And it'll look really good in just a second here. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with my bullet tip and blend these lines. So I'm just going to color right on top of them again. And maybe not all the way over to the edge, because I do want some lighter green in there. But just color over on top, and that will help blend that color out a little bit. Okay. And give it a moment. Sometimes you're thinking and you're going, gosh, that doesn't look so good, and it's not blending very well. But if you come over like to this side, you can see how it has blended. And here's a little harsh, but it is blending. And that's kind of the magic of these. And if it's not quite doing exactly what you want, just give it a little bit more in hopes of it continuing to bleed, you know, to kind of blend together a little bit more. Now, the one thing I will say is try not to go over all of the inking, you know, the stamped image, because the blends will have a tendency to blur your stamped image. Okay, I forgot some leaves here, so just real fast, we'll get these two. There's that one. Come in with a little bit of the dark, and I'm just going to go right on the line that they're giving us there. And over one more time. Okay, that little guy's done. Now let's do the same, you know, the same process, but with the Poppy Parade, or if you're lucky enough to have Sweet Sorbet, you could use that. Okay, so I'm just coloring in this shape. And I'm going to come to the next one. Again, reiterating, try not to color over the top because it really will start to blur that inked image, that stamped image. It'll, you know, if you've ever really done a lot of blending over, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, try it. And I mean, it's okay if you go touch it a little bit. Just don't go over and over and do a lot of blending over top. So who here enjoys Stampin' Blends? Just curious. I haven't, since we came out with Stampin' Blends, I have not pulled out my markers that much. Just the regular basic Stampin' Right markers. It's just one of those, I just like these. I like that they're opaque, but they're translucent opaque, whereas markers are like heavy coverage. Now I'm adding just a little bit of green here because I got some red into the stem. So I'm just kind of correcting it with the other pen. Okay, I'm gonna go to the darker of the poppy here, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the leaves and just kind of do a little bit on the outsides of these and just in a few places here and there. And then I'm gonna come in and give it another blend. Okay. All right, still waiting for somebody to say if they prefer blends over markers, or what's your preferred coloring method? I think blends and watercolor are kind of at an even, I like both of them. I forgot to add any dark right there. That's why I went back in there with some dark. I'm just kind of trying to blend these a little bit more. And there you have it. I think just a touch more right in here. Okay, that's it. That's the coloring we're gonna do for this card. But don't put those away too far. You can get rid of the reds for now, but keep the yellow and the green. And while they're here, I am going to give these a paint with a little wink. Okay. The leaves, the whole thing. Hello, Julie. I was just asking Julie your preferred coloring method. Watercolor, watercolor pencil, blends. What is your go-to favorite? Or will you do either? Any? Okay, now I am going to definitely paint these daisies, even though there's not ink. I am going to give them a little bit of color here. With the wink of Stella, give them some glisten. Okay, now we'll set those aside to dry, and we're going to do a little bit more blending of color. And the blending of color that I'm going to do, I'm gonna take this piece of striped yellow and white, and I'm going to take my blends and let me see, where's my two dies that I pulled out earlier? Here they are. This is going to kind of tell me how much I need to color. So I want to cut this out and I want to cut this out. So it looks like I need to go, we'll include this one. So I'm just going to kind of come to here and I'm going to add some, and I'm not even filling them all the way in, just color these stripes here and there and everywhere. So that was the light mango. Now I'm going to come in on some of these darker spots. I'm just trying to blend this so that I have more yellow paper and that I don't have just stripes, okay? So, and there are still stripes there. It's not going to completely change it. But when you die cut these, you're not even going to notice that there is that this was a striped paper. But we are going to have some nice, it's going to just have a nice texture to it, and it's not going to be a solid yellow paper. It's just going to be a cool look. So, you know, the rule of thought here is just to have some fun changing up the DSP. It doesn't have to be exactly the way it came. Feel free to paint them, to ink them up with blending brushes, or like we've done right here, is use your Stampin' Blends to color them. Okay, So here are my flowers. Okay, punch all this out. Get my flower to pop out. There it is. So look, you don't even notice that there are like real definite stripes in there. Had I left it just yellow and white, you definitely would have seen those stripes. So that's ready. And let's get this one ready as well. And now we're going to do the same thing for our leaf. Okay, so there's my 2 flowers. Now we need to do this leaf. Now for this one little leaf here, I'm going to just kind of clip this out because I'm going to be using this for another card. So just out of this lower corner here, just clip what you need. You know, just kind of a rough cut. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the yellow, only this time we're going to color it with our green markers. Okay. So, and as usual, I like to start with the light. So there's the light. We can add some dark in here. Ooh, really dark. Okay, well, we may blend that just a little bit more. Well, look at that. Those dark lines just kind of blended in. And if you feel like it's like blotchy, keep going, because you know what? When you die cut it, that blotchiness will all go away. Okay, so gonna cut this one out. Okay. All the extra die cut crumbs here. Okay. So there is my leaf. Isn't that cool looking? I mean, it's DSP, but it has some texture and it's a little bit more dressed up than just a plain piece of solid cardstock. You know, I just think it adds just a little bit of life. All right, we're gonna get rid of this. Get rid of our crumbs. And let's work on assembling these pieces. All right, so this piece here, what we're gonna do is we're going to trim this so that we have 4 strips for our card, okay? And we're going to cut this to 3 3/4. So we're gonna take this is already 3 by 6. So we're gonna take this to 3 3/4 by 3, okay? Save that, you never know when we might use it again. Okay, so this here, now we're going to cut this into 4 3/4 inch strips, okay? So 3/4 inch, so I'm just gonna put it at 2 2/4. So there's strip number 1. Now we'll put it at 1 1/2. Strip number 2, and I'm gonna work on keeping these in order. And then if I put this at 3/4, then that's gonna split this last section in half. Hello, Terry. I'm happy you are here. So there's my 4 strips, and these are going to glue onto this piece of starry sky that we've textured. Okay, and I forgot to unclog my glue. You think I would remember to do that? Unclog glue before class. Okay, keeping these in order, I'm gonna do the 2 outsides, then the 2 inside. That's to me the best way to space these. Okay, and let me bring the sketch challenge back in. These pieces don't go all the way to the top. So see, that's something I wouldn't have done. I'd have made them fit the whole way. But so using that as my motivation, as my guide, my inspiration. So who says it always has to be, you know, symmetrical or perfectly even? And in actuality, even though these don't come all the way up, this is very symmetrical. Okay. So, and let me just wiggle this one down so it's kind of in line. So curious, do you guys use and like sketch challenges? Since you didn't answer my coloring question, so that's their 2 questions up. Do you use sketch challenges and your preferred method of coloring? My preferred method of coloring is somewhere right in between. You know, I like both Stampin' Blends. I like blending and I like watercoloring. Those are my favorite. And I think it's because they're not as, the coverage isn't as heavy. They're a little lighter in feel. Okay, I gotta wiggle this guy over a little bit. Okay, so now center that one. And there is my layer. Again, here's our sketch challenge. So I'm gonna put this one on with dimensionals because dimensionals makes everything better, right? And I'm gonna do 6 on this to keep the sides from sagging in. Okay, keep those handy and nearby because we will be needing those in just a second here for our stamped elements. Okay, trash. Okay, we'll bring this over. Make sure I'm going the right direction. And now, according to the sketch challenge, this just kind of give yourself an even top and bottom and an even right and left side. So there's that. And we're going to bring this in. So this piece here is going to take the place of this, okay? And my small flower is going to come in there. And these flowers will arrange in there. So let's do that much, and then we'll do some heat embossing here. Sherry says, I am glad we are seeing everything live, but there does seem to be a glitch with the comments not being seen. Oh. So Sherry, thanks for that information. This is the first comment I've seen. So I've seen people when it says, you know, so-and-so is watching, but I haven't seen any comments. So makes me very nervous. They've been funny. I was talking to Julie Beltramo earlier today, and I was telling her that it used to be that I could do anything on Seeing Ink Spots as myself, but now I have to switch mode and switch profile back and forth, and it's driving me crazy. So I don't know what Facebook's been doing lately, but they're upsetting my stamp, you know, what I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to layer this one in right about here. Okay. And I don't want to tuck this one on too tight because I'm going to use that to hold that flower down. Tricks of the trade. And this leaf here, it's not going to show, but sometimes when it does, sometimes I cut that little, it's like, because to me that stem needs to be, this is where the florist in me is going to come out. And the stem would need to be in water. And so if it's going to show, I'm going to cut it off. Okay. So there are 33 comments so far. Yeah, this is only the second one I've seen. Yeah, I just have who's watching and your comment and that one. Well, thanks for letting me know that I'm not out here all alone. Sherry, you're awesome. Okay, so I'm going to glue this in to this corner. Kind of tuck that right in there like so. Got it a little too far in. There we go. Well, that'll have to be the right place. And now with this one, again, you know me, I'm just going to do little dots of glue here and there, enough to hold it on, but enough to allow, not so much, to allow this to kind of, you know, hang out and be free and have a little bit of freedom here and there. Looks like that one is, come on, I can't get it in there as far as I want to go. Okay, that one's going to go right there. But I like that this is lifted up and not just stuck down like that. Okay, Kayleen's here. Okay, so that's the third comment I've seen. All right, here goes my little flower here as well. And it's going to come right in there. And now we have this spot right here to create our little greeting is going to go right there. So that will be my interpretation of that layer. Okay. Just because the layer might be rectangle doesn't mean you have to make it be a rectangle. Just because it's a circle, it doesn't have to be a circle, right? All right, I am going to use the image from the set that says hello there. Maybe the comments will, yeah, I hope they do. Because I'm thinking, how do you guys color? What was the other question? I've already forgotten. All right, so I've just hit that with my embossing buddy. And you can get an embossing buddy in that embossing kit type thing that they have in the July-December catalog. So I'm stamping with Versamark. I prefer Versamark with white embossing powder. I think the Versamark just gives me a crisper letter image. Does that make sense? Sometimes when I use white and it's for letters, if I use white ink, the letters are kind of blotchy, okay? So I've just stamped the hello there. I don't know if you can see. Once I put the embossing powder on, you'll see where I put it. But I don't need the whole piece, okay? And I did it good and crooked. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stamp it one more time and not be so crooked because we have enough paper. Okay, let's see if we can stamp straighter. Oh yeah, that's better. It's definitely better. Okay. It's better, but I have some excess stuff here that I don't want. So we'll scratch that off. And that. And then this one here, I'm just gonna wipe off back into the bucket. You've noticed that too with white ink. Yeah, it's just kind of funny. It's better with Versamark. Okay, give that a little flick. And I'm gonna heat tool this. Put the lid on. Have you ever, I've done it more than once, I've done it more than twice, and that is I'll come in with the heat tool and my embossing powder is nearby and I blow it all over the place. So that's why I got to put the lid on. Oh, sketch challenges. That was the other question. Thank you, Sherry. All right, so while the heat tool was going, I'm busy jabbering away. So yes, the other question was, do you use sketch challenges? And so Sherry says she loves Stampin' Blends and sketch challenges. Yeah, you know, I think they're great. Like I say, they totally take me out of my typical, this is how I would lay it out kind of thing, you know? All right, so I'm not giving this a specific measurement. I'm just gonna trim this to where it fits that nicely, okay? But it's wiggling around. Okay, so there we have it. It may be a little tight, but that's okay. And I'm gonna trim the sides down just a little bit. Okay. And I think I'm gonna do it with scissors because it's moving all over the place. Yeah, I'm gonna use a pair of scissors to just, there we go. And the other side is good enough. So now I'm gonna add this with a couple dimensionals. And because this is paper, not cardstock, it doesn't need 3 dimensionals, but it does need 3 dimensionals because it's only paper and I don't want it to sag in the middle. Okay, so there are those. Now we'll add these and we'll almost be done. We just have to add my 2 favorite items and I'm sure you can guess what those are. Oh, you look on Pinterest for sketches. So do you just like Google card sketches, or not Google, but you know, search card sketches, I guess is what I should have said. Okay, I'm gonna have to put another dimensional right here on the side to even that out. I find, you know, they pop up in my Facebook feed so often, so that's where I find a bunch of card sketches. And then, yes, I used hand stamped sentiments, and then our next 2 cards are going to be TGIF sketches. Yeah, there are so many. So have any of you seen Martin Stone? He has a sketchbook out. You can get on Amazon. I did purchase one, supporting my friend from abroad. And it's not a book of sketches. It's a book for you to sketch and to create in. It's a nice little book that you can use as a sketchbook. All right, so there we have, all right, our card. But two more things, as usual. I am going to prime my Wink of Stella. Give it a shake and then a squeeze over your scratch paper. And then I am going to flick it like crazy. I really like the way Wink of Stella makes this Orchid Oasis just shine. It is so cool. Okay, so let me see. Yes, they look so fun, brilliant idea. I need to get one or all in every color. Of what, Nicole? I don't remember what I was saying. The sketchbook sounds fun. Yeah, it's cool because it has spaces for sketches, for color combos, for product lists, and different ideas. And so you have sketches for portrait, for landscape, for slimline, portrait and landscape, and you have square. So it's cool. This is the In Color Baker's Twine, and I'm using the Starry Sky, and I'm just going to take some of that off. Who has it? It's Martin Stone. So Martin Stone is from, he's a demonstrator in England. So, and he is, the sketch is, Sketch Mayhem, I think is the name of the book. I should run go get it. It's in my stamp space, not in the kitchen here. Okay, so I'm just tying a bow as usual. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. But you might know Martin more by Martin's Mayhem. So that's Martin Stone. Check out his book. That, and a little trim on that end. And then I'm just going to put a little dollop of glue right on the knot there. Because I'm not in the mood to deal with a glue dot. And I'm going to just kind of tuck this right there. Okay, and let that, I'm gonna tighten that one up just a little bit. Kind of give that a press for a second. Oh, come on. I overpressed it. We'll let that set up. And there you have it. Our first card is done. Let me bring them, we'll bring them both back in here. He is an artisan, Kayleen. And here is the sketch. If you want to see the sketch one more time, there you have it. So now you guys should all go to Hand Stamp Sentiments and link up for this challenge. It'd be fun to see you guys there. Okay, moving right along for card number 2. Let me bring in the sketch. This is a sketch from 2 weeks ago at TGIF, okay? TGIF is another challenge group that I designed for. And these are a lot of friends that are from the West Coast. You know, there's from all over the world, actually. But a bunch of us are right, you know, originally from San Jose, Sacramento, Las Vegas. So anyhow, fun challenge here. So you can see this one. Let's see how we're going to interpret this one. I'm going to do a little spin on it, just a little bit. So, but that's okay. That's how we roll. Pieces for this next card that you are going to need will include a half sheet of, what is this? Sweet Sorbet. So this is 5.5 by 8.5. Don't score it just yet. So 5.5 by 8.5. You're going to need that. You're going to need a 1/4 sheet of white. And you're going to need the remnant of the Starry Sky. And we're going to need some DSP here. So the DSP we're going to need, you're going to need the long piece of gingham, okay? This is Starry Sky gingham. It's teacups on the back. We'll be using that. We'll be using this long strip of Orchid Oasis teapots on the back. And we'll be using this little scrap, same color. And let's see, we're also going to use the green that we used in the first card that we did the leaf with. We're gonna use that. So these are the pieces, okay, that you will need for this next card. Oh, sorry, one more piece. This was the inspiration piece for this entire class. See this designer piece here where they have the envelope and they've got the bouquet in there? I just thought, you know, that's a lot like our stamp image from the set. And so that's why I've kind of combined the two. All right, so you're gonna need that as well. So let's do some cutting and measuring. So for those of you who do not have a Use It Up kit, this piece of sweet sorbet is 5.5 by 8.5, and I have scored it at 3 1/4. Okay, so scored it at 3 1/4, and then we're gonna bring this all the way over, and on this right side here, I'm gonna put that at 1 inch, and we're gonna trim it off. Okay, so save this, we're gonna use it. So there you have, now you have a 4 1/4 card, plus you have a little bit of red to work with. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to do with our reds here is I'm going to take my Stampin' blending brush, and I'm using one that I'm using in red ink, okay? So you're gonna need your Sweet Sorbet ink pad and your blending brush. And I'm just gonna load up my blending brush, bring in my scratch paper here. And I'm gonna offload that first heavy bit, and I'm just gonna come in here and start to just add some color. And I don't know if you can see it on camera here, but Sweet Sorbet, while I like the ink color and I like the cardstock, there's something, it doesn't, I can't describe. To me, the cardstock feels flat, or I don't know, it just feels a little unfinished. But as I came through and added this little bit of sponging around the edges, this isn't sponging, this is blending brush, but I kind of get used to calling it sponging because that's what we did. We didn't use blending brushes a long time ago. So I'm just coming, okay, and I'm gonna open this up and do the same thing. I mean, you can even see just how it's a little bit more alive. I just wanna brighten it up. You know, it's like we're putting blush on. So sorry for the poor analogies here. Okay, getting a little bit more ink, offloading the heaviness so that we don't have blotchiness. Okay, there you have it. I know some people don't like that edge. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. In this occasion, I do like it. Don't put your ink pad and blending brush away just yet. We are going to use it again. But before we go on making this card, we're going to do some more embossing. And so we're gonna go back to our gingham embossing folder here, the one that you can get during celebration for free. I'm gonna open my card base here, and I'm going to place this right to that edge, okay? Just get that right on there. Now, the only way this is gonna fit through the machine is this way, okay? Because if I shut this, it's going to bend my card. So now you just have to set it through straight and be careful. If you set it slightly at an angle, you're going to warp your embossing folder. So, let me see if I can get them in straight this time. Again, your sandwich is basic platform, clear plate underneath, and a clear plate on top. And go through straight. It will fit. And I was crooked, so I'm glad I fixed it. I think I'm missing one of the bottoms on my feet, because this is so tight. And it shouldn't be. I am struggling, folks. Ugh. You have no idea. And I know it fits. I'm just, oh, there we go. I was on a bad angle. The problem is it's too high. I'm at counter height, and that's just too high for me to emboss. There you go. Beautiful. But you can see how it's just kind of, we've got some lights and darks, and I really like the way that looks like, you know. I like the way it turned out, if you know what I mean. Okay, so now moving right along, let's cut some of these pieces. This piece here, we're going to use, just use a circle die, any circle die. I'm going to use Stylish Shapes, and I'm going to use the largest die here. And while I have this pack open, I'm grabbing the largest circle. I'm also going to grab the largest banner, okay? We're going to use that on this card. Now, if you don't have these dies, don't worry. Cut a circle with another set of dies, or a circle punch. This one, the largest one, this one measures when die cut about 2 7/8 across. And then you can always cut yourself a banner, okay? Just using a pair of scissors and your trimmer. Okay, so you're gonna cut your circle out here, and look at this, folks. It is super, super close, okay? Because remember, this inside stitching edge is what's gonna cut, okay? So it's gonna be a tight fit. If you slightly blow it on one side, don't worry, because our image, our stamp image, is going to cover that. But do try and get it in there. And I'm gonna switch my plates back to I'm using my Big Shot magnetic platform. Okay, just gotta put the right one in. And get my sandwich going here. Oh, that makes me hungry. Okay. Much easier to die cut. Oh, good, I fit this one on. My original, I got it cut off. So there's my circle, okay? You can put that paper and your die away. And we're gonna cut some strips. Okay, so you can kind of see where we're going with this, right? Okay, so now we need to kind of replicate these strips, or this strip in back. I'm gonna do it with multiple strips. So I'm gonna use that one, and that one, and that one. We're gonna kind of make a banner, like a section of them. So let's see here. We're gonna trim these down. Okay, I just have paper everywhere, folks. Get organized. Bring in your trimmer. Okay, and so this piece here, our Orchid Oasis piece that has teapots on the back, is going to be 1.5 inches wide. Well, look at that. It's already 1.5 inches wide. Oh, Kayleen, cute. Yes, it's called Sketch Mayhem. I couldn't quite remember. Okay, so it's 1.5 inches wide, and we're going to cut it at 4 5/8. Okay, so you can get his book on Amazon, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be in England. I found it right here on Amazon, and it's $8. So support our friend. All right, so there's one of our strips. Then this green striped piece, this one's gonna be 7/8 instead of 1 inch. We're gonna make this one 7/8 inches wide. So it's just 1 inch was just, it felt like too much. And it's also gonna be 4 5/8. And you know, it doesn't have to be 4 5/8. It could be 4.5. There's no, it should be this. Don't worry about it, okay? So that's one. And then this one here, we're gonna keep this the width that it is. It's 2 inches. And we're gonna trim it down to 5 inches long. We're gonna make it just a little bit longer than the other two. I am ordering it too. I can't decide which color. You have the option of color, Sherry. When I bought it, there was only black available. So, but black is good. Okay, I need a drink here for just a second. Okay, so our layout's going to look something like this. I'm just gonna layer these and have some fun. And I'm gonna tuck this green. I don't want it to overpower. I just wanna see a little bit of it. So I'm tucking the green back in there, okay? And I'm gonna glue these together. And they are kind of off kilter. That's how I'm doing it. That's going to be my interpretation of this horizontal panel back there. So I'm just gonna kind of flip this over like this because I like the way I'm holding them. So I'm just gonna throw a little glue in there, a little glue there, and then glue these up like so, okay? And I didn't glue this end. I want them to be free. I don't want it to be all glued down and tight. There needs to be a, you know, some freedom in it. Makes it feel more natural. So Kayleen says, I used his link from his blog. It only had black, but if you look yourself, it has, so if you look it up yourself on Amazon, it has 2 other colors. I know it seems to me I saw like a pool party color. I don't know if I was dreaming that. Okay, so here's my interpretation so far. You can see what's going on, but let's do some stamping here. We're gonna need these 3 pieces remaining that we have, okay? So let's stamp this first. We're going to stamp in Versamark. We're gonna stamp the cute loaded envelope image. And I'm gonna clean this because it has Starry Sky ink and I wanna use Versamark. Okay. My well-loved Stampin' Chamois. And let's get the Versamark out. Our happy little container here that we use all the time. Okay, so to the, my hand is wet. To the Orchid Oasis here, I'm gonna embossing buddy that. I'm sorry, this is Starry Sky, and this is Orchid Oasis. I'm gonna embossing buddy. Oh no, I don't need to embossing buddy that. This is gonna get blue ink. I lied. So Sherry says, it doesn't show a drop down for colors, but if you go below, there are several options. Ooh, orange, yellow, red, pink, parakeet. Cool. Coastal Cabana, black and purple. Oh, cool. Coastal Cabana. That would be the color I would have chose if I actually scrolled down to the several options. Yes, Sweet Sorbet and Starry Sky do look good together. They're very patriotic. Okay, so now this is going to be a tight fit, folks, but it does fit. Okay, so just stamp your image on your Starry Sky. Voila, see, it fits. Never fear, never fear. We're using up every little stitch we can. Okay, and we're going to emboss this. Oh, cool, Kayleen, you canceled the black and ordered the coastal. That's great. Okay, heat tool coming in. Here comes the noise. Bring on the funk, bring on the noise. It's a larger image, takes a little bit longer. But look how cool that embossing looks on that Starry Sky. Nice. Okay, so now this piece of Orchid Oasis that we have, DSP, we aren't going to emboss that one. We're going to stamp it in Starry Sky. Okay? And you're thinking, hey, the image is too big for this piece. But all I want to catch is the envelope. Okay, so we're going to do some paper piecing. So just ink up the lower half of the image. Okay, and then stamp that envelope on that tiny little scrap there. That's exactly what I'm going for, right like that. Okay, so we're gonna cut those out. All right, we have a little bit more stamping to do and a little bit more die cutting, and then we can assemble. So this piece here, this extra little piece of red, this Sweet Sorbet, is just wide enough for you to cut out this cute little banner. So cut that out for yourself. Now, if you don't have the stylish shapes, like I said, go ahead and stamp a greeting on there and then trim it to the size you need. And then you can just notch the ends with your scissors, or since it's 1 inch, you could use the banner builder punch. Okay, and there you have that die. Get rid of that. And I'm gonna put my die away before I lose it. I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the card base here, and that is to add some more ink just to kind of give this a little, we're just gonna pump up the look a little bit. I'm not gonna do a ton, but let me do half of it and see if you guys can see the difference. So from here over, it just, I don't know, it just has a little bit more life to it. You know, it just pops it up just a little bit. So that's why I'm doing it. You don't have to. Especially if you were mass producing, this would be a step I might not do. But if it's one or two, I'm gonna do it. Okay, we're gonna have to let that dry because we're going to emboss our greeting on there. And if we try and do it right now, we're just gonna end up having glue that's, I mean, not glue, but embossing powder stick where we don't want it. So we do need to fussy cut these two images, and I forgot one image. We needed to have stamped the flower again. We're gonna do the same type of layout. You know, once you got a layout that works and it's good for you, you know, repeat. So this needs to be stamped in Versamark and embossed. So let's get that. Okay, one more little Versamark. Voila. So in your area, are people going back to school? I was talking to Julie earlier this morning and she said that their schools were starting today. It just seems so early to me. So early. Keep that nearby because we're going to be stamping that in a second. But I have a little straggler here, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay. Now we'll emboss this. Hold on to my paper with anything handy. Ah, there we have it. That's a quick one. It's little. Okay, so I mentioned we had some fussy cutting to do. So you're going to fussy cut your envelope and flowers, and you're going to fussy cut this one as well. So Nicole's daughter starts her senior year of high school August 23rd. My other two go back to college next week and the last week of this month. That seems a little bit more normal, but you know, some that were starting earlier this week, I'm just like, that's just not even fair. I'd be like, where? I've lost my summer. There's no summer left. Okay, so these get fussy cut. I've done these ahead of time, but we're also going to fussy cut these three sections of the envelope. And here's where we're going to cut them, okay? So I'm cutting just inside the line, okay? So this isn't the piece I'm talking about. So I'm cutting this one right now. I'm working on this right side here. So I'm cutting just inside the line, okay? So I'm cutting just on the outside. It's almost like I'm cutting out the leaf, but that's not really what I'm going for. I'm going for the envelope. So cut around these. Cut up in there. Kind of, this has a little bit of an angle right there. And we're going to just come down the inside of that and don't lose it. That's, so, you know, you think, oh yeah, you're going to fussy cut. This is what I'm going for because this is going to paper piece right inside my envelope there, okay? It's a subtle little detail, but you'll see it in the finished card. It looks really cool. Okay, so this one, again, I'm going to cut right on the inside of that line because we want it to fit inside of the embossing. Okay. Now don't get too crazy right there because you got a piece you need. Okay, staying to the inside of that line. And we need to do the same thing and take that little side away. There's that one. So it will glue inside that section. So you get where I'm going. Your nephew started on Monday. Yeah, I have nieces. Well, I do have a nephew in Texas. Well, I have several nephews, but I'm specifically thinking of my nephew Nate. His kids started earlier this week. And he does have a little boy, but he's not old enough for school. But his girls did. And I just thought, wow, that is so early. Okay, so now I can clip that away. You like these kinds of start cards where there's more to study? Yeah, it looks like, oh, there's this card. But yeah, there are little details here and there that you may not notice. But that's, to me, that's the fun of it, is just kind of making it a little, it's the process. I think that's why we all, some people like to be done right away. And it's like, oh no, I like to fussy cut. I don't want it to be over too soon. I want to enjoy the process. Okay. There's that. Okay. And I'm going to just take this aside for now. Get that out of the way. And I told you I had my other pieces already pre-cut, so you don't have to sit there and watch me pre-cut a whole bunch of things. That would have been crazy. Crazy. But I did want you to see how I cut that out. It's Tuesday, that's just nuts. So there's my piece. And I've already got my other flower ready to go. Okay, so we can kind of shake that there. We'll set that aside for another card. But right away, so I don't lose these little tiny not die cut, but these little tiny paper pieces. I've got a little too much right there. I'm going to glue these in place so I don't lose them, okay? So I have one here. Just a little bit of glue. So rather than trying to put it on the back of this, I just find it was way easier to do it this way. And then you're just going to set it in there and move it around until it fits just the way you want. Okay. Cute. Same thing with this. So this one slips in here. Okay. And then this last one, obviously right here. Okay. All right, there you have our paper piecing. Let me bring that so you can see it. Cool, easy way of coloring. And now for the rest of this, we are going to do some more coloring, but instead of with blends, we're going to do kind of like we did last week, where we did some milk painting using white ink, and we did it on Sahara sand. But I wanted you to see milk painting on a dark color and to see how, it's just a little bit different. So let me get a piece of scratch under here. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of get my brush going, and I'm gonna do my ink not quite as runny as normal because I want my white, and so it's a little too watery just right now. Usually I want it watery, but, so let me just kind of blot that off. I want it to be a little bit more opaque. And so I'm just going to pull some of the water out with my fingers, but I want some opaque, pretty heavy coverage inside all of the embossing. And it's nice because it, that embossed edge keeps you inside the lines. Riding a bike with training wheels. Okay, again, I'm going to pull out some of the color. This is a free-flowing aqua painter. Okay, so just getting all kinds of white ink in here. And we'll have to build up some layers because I do want to come in and we're going to paint color on top. And in order to do that, we have to have enough white ink on there, okay? So again, I'm pulling some of that water out of the tips of my bristles. Okay, just kind of add these layers of white. Like I say, it takes a few layers. to start to build it up. And you think, oh yeah, I've built it up, and then it dries and you're like, hey, where'd it go? Because it dries darker. So it blends right into your paper. Okay, more there, a little bit more there. But you can see where we're going with this. Okay, a little bit more. A little more. A little more. Okay, get the idea. Okay, so now I'm going to let that dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to emboss my greeting on my red. Okay, I'm going to hear I say that, and then I keep adding more ink, but I can see it drying and where I want to add a little bit more white. Okay, so there you have that. Let that dry. Let me bring this up so you can see. Okay, so I thought the white painting on the Sahara sand, I love that lack of contrast, that it's really, really, and it just made for a soft, supple look. This has a little bit more of a stronger contrast on the dark paper. Okay, so let's put a greeting on this, and we're going to put a greeting on here from the set, and we will do, what are we going to do on this card? Always grateful for you. Look at that. Isn't that cute? I like the sans serif, or the serifed. They aren't sans without, they are with. And then the combination of the U having the handwriting in there. Okay, a little bit of this for static, because we can. And then let's hope I can stamp this straight. And if it's not straight, we're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it because it's my only tag that I have here. And I'll correct it after. Sometimes my little goofs. Ooh, that's nice and straight. Pat myself on the back. Okay. Coming in with the powder. Give it a flick. Lid up before you blow it away. Okay. And then we will, and I'm going to put this underneath because when I do it on top of my paper, it makes my paper warped. Okay, I just grab anything nearby that I can hold on with. All right. My greeting is ready. And I think we are ready to add a little bit of paint to this. Okay, so we're going to use Sweet Sorbet, and we're going to use, well, I forgot to bring Granny Apple, but you'll get the idea. Sweet Sorbet, and you need some Granny Apple, but I don't have Granny Apple with me. I forgot to put it in the list. And you can use an aqua painter, or you can use your Wink of Stella. And the thing is, what's going to be interesting about this is I'm using Sweet Sorbet, but it's going to end up looking purple. And so you're watching me put the red on here, and put red right into this flower here. Okay. In fact, all of these flowers are going to be painted with the red. Okay. And the leaves with green, which I will paint later, so you don't have to watch me sit here and do that. Or go grab the pad. Okay, so you can see as it's fading, it's getting more purpley looking, right? And I kept adding more red and more red and more red, and it's still, I'm like, okay, well, that's the color it's gonna be. Oh, in here. But that layer of white allows you to add a little color on top. And everybody's will look a little bit different, right? Because we're all different with our coloring. Okay. And pretend that I did the leaves. I do have pictures ready to post, so you'll see those pretty quick. So there's my flowers. And then do come in, give them what they need most, little shine, little bit of prettiness. Okay. And now this is, ready to go. Oh, she's going to go pick up her farm order. Yeah, I have one more card, Nicole. You'll see it when you get back. Good to have you here. Thanks for coming. Oops, I'm getting red ink on my granite here. That's not good. Okay, moving right along. Let's actually put all this back together. Let's bring in our sketch so we can see where this is going. So you kind of can see this card, their card doesn't look like it has this cut in it, but I did it because I wanted it. And so I'm going to layer this here, bring this in here. And then my interpretation of this next smaller circle is going to be the banner, okay? It's going to be the banner, and it could also be, where did I put that other little... I have another little flower here that I'm going to add. We stamped a second little flower and I can't find it. That's why I made 2 earlier. I knew I would lose it. So we have one more flower. It's going to come right in there. So I'm kind of interpreting there. And then this is going to layer on top, like so. But before we glue anything down, we are going to add, and I'm not sure if I have enough. I think I might have enough of Starry Sky left. If I don't, I could use Orchid Oasis twine, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of lift these pieces aside for just a second, and I'm gonna wrap my twine around this piece here and tie it. Oh yes, I have plenty, but I need to kind of take all the kinkiness out of it. It's kinky. Okay, so we'll tie this. And then I can slide the bow where I want it in just a second. But I'm going to tie it I'm going to tie a second knot here so that I'm not fighting it. Oh, Kat, we'll catch you later on the replay. Happy you were here. Good to see you. And actually, this is going to come over here just a little bit. So I moved my knot to about, I'm just kind of over here a little further. Not quite to the left and not quite to the middle. Just kind of somewhere in between. Okay, so we'll tie that in a bow. And folks, we're ready to kind of layer this all together. Kind of tighten that bow up. Now let me give this, has a little bit of a frayed edge there. So we'll just trim up our ends. Nice. Now we can glue everything together. So I'm going to glue, as I'm gluing this piece on, and you can do it however you like, but these 2 pieces, these 2 top pieces are kind of cattywampus, but I am looking at this one here, the gingham piece, I am going to lay it on straight, okay? So I'm going to add it straight, but it does hang over the edge, so I'm only going to put glue on this top portion, okay? So it hangs over just a little bit. And I may need to move my ribbon down. It's not ribbon, it's twine. Twine. Okay, and I'm looking at it and I am trying to have, it's kind of tricky, but I am trying to put that down so that it's parallel with the card, okay? Sometimes when we have craziness, you do need to have some calm in the sea of all of this. This is gonna glue on. And it is going to glue over the twine, okay? And I'm going to put my next images, they're all going to go on with dimensionals. Look at how those red flowers have gone more purpley just over the few minutes. Okay, so this guy, I've been putting 4 on this. And then this one here, because it's going to sit kind of halfway on the envelope and halfway off, I'm going to do a dimensional just on the leaves. Okay, I've got an extra surprise in there because this part I'll glue to the envelope. And with our greeting here, let's just cut some of this up and use this. Okay, we'll do that. And that's a bit big, so we'll just do a little piece over here. Okay, time for a new sheet of dimensionals. And I brought enough with me this time, so I don't have to go get them. Okay, so I'm just peeling all these backings off. So this morning, Bosco came up to me and I'm like, what's on your nose? He had one of these on his nose. I'm like, oh, you're in the club now with all the other dogs. It's the first time I've seen him have one of those on his nose. But definitely Livy has them, had them on, and Brian. So do you find these stupid dimensional covers all over the place? I'm like, oh, how did it get in here? All right, so I'm just kind of assembling my pieces here. Now my banner, I'm also going to have the greeting straight as well, okay? And like I said, this one's going to cantilever half on the envelope and half off. So I'm going to do just a little bit of glue on that. And there you have it. There is the front, but I'm not quite done. Okay, so if you want to slip this underneath or however you want to, however you want to do your bow. I do have a 1/4 sheet of white here that we can slip inside. You decide, do you want some white balance in this, literally white balance, or do you want to keep it all sweet sorbet? I actually, on my original here, I trimmed this down to be 4 inches by 5 1/4, so that it had a red border around it. So 4 by 5 1/4. You could do the whole thing. I like the whole thing. Okay, that. And so this is going to glue inside the card. Yada-da. You know that I like to use the tape runner on white because I don't like the way the glue shows through. Okay, so I'm just going to insert this. This way this is ready to be filled out. Okay, there you have it. And so this is going to come over like so. Now, in your bag, if you have your Use It Up kit, there are 2 iridescent purple sequins. Okay, so we are using those up. I had just enough for the Use It Up kits to give you 2. Typically we would like 3, but these were left over from a paper pumpkin. They were beautiful, and I'm like, they need to be used. They need to be on a card. But look at here, we have 1, 2 flowers. So we're gonna put them right in the center of these 2 flowers. There you have it. And I've used up all of those beautiful purple iridescent rhinestones from a paper pumpkin kit. Speaking of using up paper pumpkin kits, I went through and opened up all of my boxes and finished all of them. I have I do, I have few. I have like 3 paper pumpkin boxes, some Christmas ones from last year that have finished stuff in them. So anyhow, so there you have it. Here is card number 2. Here was my original. And this was totally being inspired by another sketch you can kind of take a look at and try. Interesting, you don't find the glue showing through on white. You don't find it. I do, because I must be heavy-handed, because when I touch this, I find that same streaky line. That's what's coming through my white. So there you have that interpretation of that sketch using the love notes, or the full of love. I keep calling it love notes. That's not what it is. Okay, let me show you the last sketch we're going to follow. You're getting a sneak peek. This is tomorrow's sketch for TGIF. And so I have my card ready. You'll see it tomorrow, but you'll see it right now. So let me show you how I'm interpreting this particular card. Sketch layout. It's pretty obvious. Sometimes they're obvious and sometimes we take a little liberty. But the only liberty I took here is, instead of a circle, I've used my stamp image, okay? So I think this is really a charming little sweet summery card. So let's make this one together. You're gonna need what's left. So we have a crushed curry piece of paper, okay? And you need a 1/4 sheet of Whisper White, basic white. And let's go back to that piece that we first stamped on. That's where we can stamp our images. And from our designer series paper, there is a Blushing Bride gingham, which has the, you know, these, so my original color palette, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta use crushed curry, gotta use some red. So I mean, I played all around with this, and then I ultimately decided to use the gingham. And you're going to need some of your leftover from your red here. We should have just enough, okay? Your red, and we're gonna make a banner with that. So let's move right along here. Let's stamp first. Okay, so we're gonna stamp the, this is a beautiful image. I often will double up my stamps on blocks. So this is the image we're looking for, the big one here. We're gonna stamp that twice using gray granite on our white here. The first time we need it full, we need the full image, and then the second time we just need enough of it to catch that envelope. Okay, the envelope in the center there. So we don't need the full thing. Okay, so we're just gonna stamp that. Okay, and now let's ink this up again. And like I say, I just wanna catch the envelope. And so what I think I'm gonna do, kind of did this backwards, but we're gonna fussy cut this out. Mine's already done. But do a rough cut of it, so now you can come in here and stamp the envelope, okay? That way you didn't have to do any masking. So fussy cut this piece, fussy cut the envelope, which I'm gonna do right now, which is the easiest fussy cut there could be, because it's just 4 straight lines. That is my kind of fussy cut. This other image, the whole thing, it took me a few minutes. But just turn on some music, or turn on a podcast, or turn on a video. Okay, so let me just take these out of the way, and you can see I have this one done, because that would have been a long time. It probably took me like 10, 12 minutes to cut that out, because I was going back in and kind of cleaning things up. All right, so let's see here. We are going to color this with blends. Okay, and we're gonna color both of them. So this time we're gonna bring in the same colors we did earlier, but we're going to add Flirty Flamingo. And you could add Flirty Flamingo, that's the light pink that I have, or you might have another light pink. You might have Blushing Bride. I don't know what we have, but anyways, I'm using Flirty Flamingo because that's the pinkest pink I had. So I have a tendency to like to start with the leaves. I don't know why, but I do. So I'm just gonna come in here and start with the leaves. Catching all of these. And let's bring the original in just so you can kind of see where we're gonna go. Okay, another one. And this is a big enough image that I could use the brush marker tip, but the brush marker tips on this are totally like, they're not the way they came. They are kind of worn out. I've used them a lot. Okay, there's my leaves. Okay, but I've also done a few of these small leaves right in here as well, in the green. Okay, and this is my light blend. As I mentioned earlier, I like to start with that light blend. Get things kind of primed that you can come in and dot in some darker color here and there, and then go back. which is what I'm going to do right now with the darker granny apple, is I'm just going to kind of come right along this vein that they've drawn. I'm not going to do the smaller leaves because I want them to be a little different from these. Okay. And now I'm just going to color over that. I'm just kind of coloring back and forth to blend that. This card is your favorite. It's a sweet card. I really like the way it turned out. I'm glad you like it, Jolinda. Okay, again, I'm just kind of scritchy scratching back and forth over the heavier line to work on blending it in just a little bit. So there are my leaves. And I'm going to go in and hit all the little, these little yellow, I don't know, they're, you know, just a small yellow flower, kind of like a, I don't know, maybe an alstroemeria. I don't know. So these that are kind of like a faux tulip shape, I know that they're not. They're too small. Okay, so these are yellow, and I want to make some white little daisies again, like little marguerite daisies. Okay, so I'm putting a little yellow center there. And I'm going to, these little berries, I'm actually going to have them be red so that we can tie some red into our greeting. Okay. So quiet. I like that. It is a peaceful card. It's just kind of easy breezy, go lucky, chill. So that was the light, and I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to kind of dot in here just to give it a little bit of dimension, visual dimension without, you know, so it's just not quite as flat one color. It just has a little bit of a pop. Now let's work on our 3 main flowers, and I'm going to start those with the bullet tip again. And again, I'm trying not to color over the image, the stamped image, because when you go over and over, it does kind of start to blur out. Okay, so there's that layer. Come in here, get this one going. Okay, get this guy. So does anybody have fun plans for the weekend? I have a big hot date tomorrow night with an almost 2-year-old. Gonna be babysitting. I think I'll take him out to dinner. It's kind of fun to go out with the kid. He loves onion rings, so who knows? He just likes to be on the go, busy, busy. Okay, and I'm gonna come back in with the light and just kind of color right on top of that and a little over, just to help blend it a little bit so it's not quite as, you know, you don't want that line to show. Okay, let's blend this one. Last flower. That will be fun. It will. He's just cute. We saw him last night or the night before, I don't remember. Tuesday night, they had been on vacation, and we walked in and he goes, "Gah!" We're like, what does "gah" mean? We have a new name. We're "gah." Okay, one last little teeny thing to do, and that is I'm just going to give this heart a little love right there. And I even did the same thing that I did, gave it a little bit of extra dot in there of the darker, just to kind of add a little dimension. So there you have your pieces, okay? This second envelope is going to dimensional right on top of the first. Whoops. dropped my dimensional. Okay. Do you know what he does with the onion rings? Before he eats them, he tries to wear them. Tries to put them on his arm. Pretty cute. Or he puts them on his fingers. Okay, so there you have, that's going to be our kind of our focal point, adding that envelope on top. Now let's do a little bit more stamping. This piece here, I'm going to chop this off just to get it out of my way. I'm going to come back in just like I did on that first or that second card where we added some red ink to just bring this to life. And that's what I did on this one. The edges are definitely, you know, I definitely came in and just pumped up the color of this piece of paper. It just has a little more life, adding a little bit of ink on top of it. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to let that dry for just a second before we emboss the greeting that you can see on my original there. So that way we're not fighting the ink. Well, there's the missing flower from my other card. And we're going to take our piece of white, so one of your quarter sheets, trim that down to 4 by 5 1/4. Five and a quarter. Okay, and we're going to emboss it with the gingham embossing folder as well. See if I can do this one with a little more ease. Since I was struggling on the last one so bad. Okay, so do make sure you're lined up. I mean, you want your gingham to be squared off. So you can use the line here or just even the design of the folder, but I like to make sure it's on there straight. Oh, this is much better. It's not quite as, I made sure it wasn't crooked at all. Okay, beautiful. There's that. Looks like I got a little ink on it. So we're gonna flip it over, because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so my card base is 4 1/4 by 11, and you could make it a top fold. This happens to be a gate fold, and my measurement, it's scored at 3 1/4, and again at, well, let's see, if this were actually in the machine, 3 1/4 and 8 3/4. But it doesn't matter. You can just do whatever you like. This was just, you know, sometimes I just don't like every card to be exactly a top fold or a side fold open. I like them to be a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one into a pocket because we can. So you know me, I always have a punch on hand, or you could use your, and it's this one here. It's the larger side that you want to punch your hole in, or your half notch. You could use your stylish shapes to take a little bite out of that, or just any size circle punch. And when we go to put the white on, we want to make sure we're not putting any ink on the half that's not going to be, you know. So let's see here. It's about to here. You like the way I measure? Eyeball. So I'm going to put my glue on just the side and the top. When you open it, it'll be not the top, if that makes sense. So I've just glued it such that I can make that accessible so it can be a pocket. Because remember, we should add a pocket to everything when we can. You don't have to use it, but now I do. I have access to this spot right there, okay? And this piece here, we're going to trim it to be 4 1/2 inches long. So it's 3 inches wide, I do believe. Yep, it's 3 inches wide. We're gonna make it be 4 1/2 inches long. Okay. Now, I wanna put dimensionals on this, so that it has a little bit of lift. You don't have to, you could glue right on it, but I do want dimensionals. But there's something about dimensionals on a piece of paper like this that's just not quite, it starts to, even though you could put a load of dimensionals on, it's still going to buckle in places. So here's a trick that you could do this with anything. So I'm not going to even make sure that it's the same size. I'm just trimming a piece of paper. It could be a paper that's not even white. It doesn't have to be white. Any piece of paper, glue it to the back. You don't have to fill the whole thing, but fill enough of it that it gives it, it still looks like just a layer of DSP, but it gives it a little bit more heft, and it can handle the you know, the dimensionals and be a raised layer. If you know what I mean, Vern. Does anybody get me on that? Anybody feel me on that? Okay. So now when I put this layer on, it'll stand up. Okay. Just busting out a new sheet of dimensionals. And now since it is, you know, lined with this white paper, it's not going to need nearly as many dimensionals. Okay, so we'll stick this on. And this, according to the sketch challenge, following the challenge, it's inspiration or it's complete and total direction. For this one, it's pretty much followed it to the T. So it has, see, has a layer just underneath. So we've done that with the yellow and the white. And now this one seems to go right above, right at the top. Okay. So kind of following that one. And then this piece here will be our circle. So let's put that on with dimensionals. Here's this sheet. We'll use it up. 2 and 3. Okay. This one's going here. All right. And now let's work on that greeting. That will be next. I might have this just a skosh high. Oh well. Well, no, move it while you can. Dimensionals haven't set up yet. Okay, I'm going to move it down just a little bit. But I'm going to make sure my letter is straight. Yeah, yeah, I do agree, Sherry. It is, you know, that way you're not using up all of your dimensionals. Plus, it's going to do this anyway. It's going to kind of like, you know, undulate, warp. So, okay, so let's stamp this cutie piece here. And we're going to stamp that with the greeting that says, let me take this one off. Stiff. It says sending love your way. Again, I like that combination of the, you know, the printed versus the handwriting. And we're going to emboss. So when kind of designing, you know that I like to, if it's a trio of cards, if you were going to give it as a gift, we have the continuity of elements. And that would be the white embossing and the gingham folder. And of course the stamp set and the papers, but they don't know that, the recipient. But I just kind of like to do that. Okay. So we're going to just stamp this down at the bottom and hope for the best. Pretty straight. And we will emboss this with white as before. Okay, give it a flick. And I need a little bit more on the D. And we need to scratch a little bit of it off. Okay. Lit it and heat it. So one last time, here comes the noisemaker. Okay, looking good. And now I'll just trim this up. We'll take that little notch off. We don't need that. And, you know, just kind of frame whatever you've stamped. Oops, that might be a little much. Okay. Ooh, I'm glad I wiggled it. It would have been really tight. Okay. Get rid of those pieces. And let's bring in. So this is going to set right across. This one's almost the same width. My original hangs over just a little bit more, but that's okay. That's okay. Get some dimensionals going on this. 1. We're using some long, funky pieces here. Okay. And since it is, we'll just put it right on there. Slightly different interpretation. It's all good. And I'm going to add some gems in your Use It Up kit. You have some rhinestones in there. Okay, so you have 3 in there. Okay, this was called using up rhinestones too. I had bits and pieces all over the place. But I want my rhinestones to be green, so I am gonna take my darkest Granny Apple green, using it up. That's right, Sherry. See, look at the brush marker. It's from coloring gems and linen thread. You can thrash them. Okay, so just give those a good color and let those dry. And from the twine, I'm gonna use up the sweet sorbet that I have here. I have some funky pieces. Yep. So this piece here, we're just gonna tie it in a bow, shape it the size we want, and then we'll tuck it in under the little flowers and letter image. Okay. I'm gonna take my 2 ends, hold them together, trim them. This is a smaller bow, but that's okay. It could have been bigger, but different mood. So I'm gonna tuck that. Is gonna go right under in there with a little glue. And then once these are dry, you can pick these up, and I'm gonna add a couple of these. And they dry pretty quick. So I'm just gonna do one there and a small one here. And then I'll do the other large up top. We'll do it over here. Oh, good. It was dry, the little cover. So there you have it. And of course this needs to be glued, but I'll do that off camera. You know where it's gonna go. And of course, if you want to, you can come in and paint your flowers with a little bit of wink, and you could flick it if you would like. So there you have our Use It Up class featuring love notes. Let's just kind of clean up the space here a little bit so it's not quite so obnoxious. So our third card was inspired by TGIF's sketch challenge for tomorrow. So you're seeing it a little early, but that's okay, right? So there's that one. And then our second card that we did is also a TGIF sketch challenge, but we have some cool technique here with a little bit more milk painting and adding color on top and paper piecing right in between your embossed images. So there's our sketch that inspired that one. And our first card, which was inspired by hand stamped sentiments. And so that was Tuesday. So I encourage you to find those sketch challenges and share them with one another. Hey, do you like this one? Let's do it. I'll do it with you. So thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you next week for our pickup class. And if you're part of Studio Ink Spots, get ready for Friday night. We are going to party big and have lots of prizes and fun. And stamping presentation as well. Thanks again. I will see you next week. Have a good, fun weekend, and you're awesome. See you then. Bye-bye.